Welcome to AI. That's artist interview, not artificial intelligence. This is a show where, as the name suggests, we interview artists. Joining me today is New Reality Records owner and artist Paul Conneally, aka Little Onion. Paul is the owner and founder of New Reality Records based in the UK, an accomplished poet and musician, has many projects spanning many genres and collaborators. Paul, thank you for being with me today. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing awesome.
That's good. That's good.
So, I have a series of questions for you. Some are deep, some are not. The goal of the show is to allow listeners a chance to get to know the artist on a deeper, more personal level, as well as share any of your work, upcoming projects, new releases, that sort of thing. I've got 10 questions for you, and I'd love to play your music for our listeners between every other question so that they can get to know you and your art through this interview. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Our first question: who is Little Onion?
Well, Little Onion is me, Paul Conneally. And of course, my mum and dad didn't call me Little Onion. I didn't like pop out of my mum and she picked me up and looked at me and looked at my dad and
Right,
said, Terry, look at him. He looks just like a little onion.
right.
Let's call him that. So she called me Paul Conneally. So my name, Little Onion, comes from my haiku master. So when you study haiku, you reach a certain level. It's a bit like martial arts, So when you get your black belt in poetry, kind of, um, your master might deign to give you a name. You shouldn't name yourself. And he said to me, "Now's the time." He said, "And I'm giving you the name Little Onion." And I said, "Little Onion? Why?" He said, "Because every time I peel back one skin, I find another." And then I thought, oh, yeah, that's not too bad then. That sounds okay. So, and it sounds better than Big Onion, I think. I think it's better than Big Onion. So that's who Little Onion is. It was my poet name and it kind of like persisted.
Awesome. So, do you have any upcoming projects or new releases?
We got so many releases on the label that it's difficult to talk about all of those. But every week there's something new coming out from all the artists. I can't believe how many artists there are on the label. So that keeps me quite busy. But on a personal level, I just finished an album with you,
Yes.
which is my most recent project. So our album Splinters has been kind of a very quick moving thing, really, that just kind of came together and I'm working on it. And I haven't released anything as Little Onion for a long time and not an album. So that's been one of the things that I've been really pleased to put out. And it's still not out on all the streaming services yet. So by the time people see this or hear this, it's going to be out everywhere. It's on Bandcamp at the moment and a couple of singles are out there. So that's been one of my main focuses. And the other kind of focus is trying to pull together Velvet Vulva's first release. I've been working on that this week. And we're working on a website as well. So with one of the other artists, Jerry Farrow, he's helping me put a website together too. And who knows, maybe even this interview, there'll be linked to it from there once it's up and running. But lots of things going on, lots of things going on. And in the background, there's this movie that they're making about the label and Kev, the
Yes.
singing plumber, which is also in the works. But it takes so long, that kind of thing. So yeah, we've got lots and lots of things on at the moment. And new album working on for Venus Aphrodite. I can see new Nemesine stuff coming together. Um, Craig Walker and Mark Hurtado are touring for the first time together. They're just going out tonight for the first gig in Switzerland, in Zurich. Then they play Zurich again tomorrow. So they do a DJ set in Zurich tonight, play headline tomorrow. Then they're off to another town in Switzerland, and then they're in Paris on Monday, getting ready for a tour in March, May. So lots of things going on, and sometimes it's hard to know where my head's at.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
good. That's good, and it keeps me on my toes. Although it's a bit knackering sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a lot. You do a lot for a lot of people, which is awesome. Also, if you're listening to this on the New Reality Records website, hello and thank you. Speaking of Splinters, we are going to listen to a song now off of the album called Sister Firefly. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with some more questions.
The wolf moon, a body found on the road to Hooger's Mill. You and your silver bullets give loving a bad name, attempting to capture the bass booms of the bittern, a sound system with one turntable. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Flying to Holland with tangled nets, fishes that will not be caught. Sent home from school with a plastic nip comb. Still spinning on that dizzy edge, the moon in my pocket. Searching for the origins of good versus evil. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Offsetting, a fool sees not the same trees that a wise man sees. The registration of colour and time. Nan says it's never too late to lift up your skirt and dance, counting copper coins out of an old bottle. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Things other than plants, the letter Zeta reckons he can make AI moons. The sea of tranquility throws up a splash, tip some salt into the water and mix it in with your forefinger, touching your thumb, teaching without words. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses. Sister Firefly, rereading verses.
Awesome. Well, that's Sister Firefly by Little Onion and myself, Wrath. Um, Paul, is there anything you want to share about that song or its creation?
Well, the creation of the song was really interesting, and it came from. I think I shared with you a song by The Fall first with this song, and I don't think you'd really listened to The Fall before.
No.
And like The Fall are one of the bands that I a seminal band for me. Um, and you came back with a riff, and then that led into me thinking about what goes with this. And immediately I opened up the book which I'd recently written with Gavin Wade, who's also on the label, out of an art project we did in Holland, for Internature. It was a Dutch Biennale, and a little book came out of it. And I just started reading it. It just seemed to fit together. So I just ranted the words out of that. So although he's not on the album, he's in the song. So Gavin Wade, thank you, Gavin.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that, and I was part of the song. What is your earliest musical memory?
My earliest musical memory is learning when I was about 3 years old. Might have been even younger, but it was one of the first things I could do. My dad was a bricklayer, and he'd been in the army because they'd had conscription, but that was before I was born. Now he was back bricklaying, and they'd bought their first house together, and they'd had me. And in the front room was a portable record player that my dad, when they got married, they spent nearly all their money on their first piece of furniture was this record player. And my dad used to come home and then he'd take the record player because it had a handle on it. He'd take the record player back to Aldershot camp. He was in the signals. That was his thing. And he took it to the barracks, and all the guys in the barracks would bring their records and they'd play records on this record player. So I learned when I was about 3 to play the old-fashioned record player. You know, it had the arm that used to come across and go down automatically onto you could set it at 78 or 33 or 45. Although most things were 33 or 78 at that time. And I learned, that was my first musical experience, was getting my dad's record collection, my mum and dad's record collection, and putting it on from about 3. And my dad's record collection was ostensibly Frank Sinatra.
Nice.
So I grew up on Frank Sinatra, and my mum and dad's favorite album, and that they bought kind of when they were getting married, was Songs for Swinging Lovers when it first came out. And that was one of the ones I used to play. I used to play a Woody Herman 78 as well, called, was it The Woodchopper's Ball or something like that? It was great. But Frank Sinatra, Mel Torme, people like that, that's what I grew up listening to. So playing the record player. And in fact, I had a big exhibition in a fantastic gallery at an old mine. I'd found out that Wordsworth lived in this mining area. Nobody realized, but I discovered it. I used to be called, my title was Cultural Forager. And I discovered that he'd been there, and that also a famous picture called The Blind Fiddler by David Wilkie was painted in 1806 in the farmhouse at Culloden, just up the road here. And The Blind Fiddler is now in the National Gallery. No, it's in the Tate Gallery in London, which is one of the most famous galleries in London. And I thought, the people in this area, it's a very poor area. The only culture they think they've got is mining culture. All the big cities around the mining villages always kind of look down on the people in the mining villages. They say that they're all inbred and all this kind of stuff because I'm sure you get the same kind of stuff in some of the places in America where there are mining communities which are basically very, very close knit. And I thought, wow. And yet Wordsworth lived here and worked here and walked here. There's nothing written about it. And Wilkie, one of the greatest painters, painted The Blind Fiddler. And The Blind Fiddler, what's the relevance to the record player? You're thinking to yourself. The thing is that in 1806, home entertainment was a fiddler or someone that would come to the house, and there were a series of blind fiddlers. There'd been the wars, and a lot of people had been blinded. They were trained to be fiddlers, and their job was to go around houses, and they'd knock on doors, and they'd go into the house, and they'd play the fiddle for the family, and that would be the home entertainment. So for us, the home entertainment then became kind of the record player and things like this, or people bought pianos and played them in their houses. But the record player was home entertainment. And now I suppose it's Alexa or whatever it is that people play their music through, the digital thing. So I had this exhibition which was home entertainment 1806 to 2003, and I was allowed into the resources of the museums to find anything to do with home entertainment, but also I picked things from my family. So that record player finished up in a cabinet in an exhibition with the original record sleeve, my dad's record sleeve, a bit ripped, of Songs for Swinging Lovers in it. So my first musical memory is playing my mum and dad's record player in the front room of my house on Winkerbank Hill, basically, just under Winkerbank Hill in Sheffield, on Newman Road, where we lived, their first house. And it stayed with me all the time. And I've still got the record player, and I still play the record player.
Nice. What's the first record you ever bought with your own money?
I'm going to start before that, because the first record I ever got was from my Uncle Jack, who wasn't my Uncle Jack. So, in working class families, the friends of your mum and dad, they're not your relations, but we call them uncle. So he was my Uncle Jack Parker, who'd grown up with my dad on the same council estate as my dad in Nethershire in Sheffield. And he used to go, one of his jobs was to go around pubs, and pubs had jukeboxes in them. And when they changed the records on the jukeboxes, they used to give my Uncle Jack the records they'd taken off the jukeboxes, some of them. And so he used to give me pop records when I was about, I'd probably have been about 8 or 9. So the first one that I remember him giving me was I'm a Believer by the Monkees. And so that was the first record that was mine, but I didn't buy it. So the first record that I bought was when I was about 11 or 12, and it had just come out, and it was the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie. And I knew every single word to that album. It was kind of like an opening up for me at that time to get that album. It was totally different to anything I'd heard. And the way he looked, it just kind of struck a chord with me.
Okay, coming up on song 2, we have Won't You Tell Me How to Mend This Broken Heart by Little Onion.
We had a good thing going, so it appears. Acts of passion, lipstick smears. Then you turn around and walk out the door. You leave my loving heart bleeding on the floor. Won't you tell me how
So that song, Won't You Tell Me How to Mend This Broken Heart? I first did my own version of it, a really lo-fi version of it, using a four-track Tascam cassette player. I don't know if you've ever used any of those machines,
No,
Nick,
no.
but it's kind of they were great. So you used to have to bounce across within the tracks of a cassette tape. You'd bounce across the tracks, um, and I'd made a version using that. And then I was back in contact with Tom Green. Tom Green used to be in the first band I was ever in, that ever brought anything out anyway. And he then went on to be in The Orb. So he wrote and programmed a lot of the first Orb albums, uh, Star 5, 4, 6, whatever it is. He did all that anyway. I got back in contact with him, and it was still Tom, and we made this version together of "Won't You Tell Me How to Mend This Broken Heart." So that was the Tom Green from The Orb and Another Fine Day mix of it. And I'm thinking about Tom because Tom was such a good friend, and I made other things with him after that. Subsequently, we were involved with a project where we were looking, even back then, at how Spotify were fleecing everybody. This is years ago when Spotify first started. When we discovered that you got paid for the first 30 seconds, and it didn't matter if people listened to it, if you had a 10-minute track, it didn't make any difference. As long as they'd listened to 30 seconds, you got paid. So some of the guys we were working with said, "Oh, we'll just make an album of all 31-second tracks." And Spotify didn't like it. They didn't
Right.
like it, but it became a thing, and in fact, it got in all the media because it
Nice.
was. So I made a couple of albums like that with him, where we'd have tracks on that album. So they used to use different artists on it. So then we made this, and I didn't put it out initially, but I put it up on Facebook or something like that, or on YouTube. And people listened to the song, and then people I hadn't seen for years started contacting me saying, "Are you okay? Is everything okay with you and Zoe?" Zoe is my wife. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." What's the problem? Well, that song, I listened to that song. Oh man, I thought it was, which for me was like a really big compliment
Yes.
because everybody thinks that all our songs are strictly true, don't they? When someone listens to it, they like to believe this is the story of that person's life. So won't you tell me how to mend this broken heart? So I got people contacting me. Are you okay? And of course, I'm fine. And I'm still with Zoe all these years later. In fact, we'll have been married 40 years this year. So
Oh, congratulations.
at Christmas on the solstice, the winter solstice, that's when we got married, the winter solstice.
So take us through your songwriting process. I know they're not all the same, but do you start with lyrics or like a concept, or do you start with like a little jam on a synth and go from there?
I suppose that when I first started writing songs, which would have been when I was about 14, something like that. So a long, long time ago, because I'm 66 now. So that's a long time ago. I would have started with the words probably.
Mm-hmm.
Sat in my teenage bedroom, writing down rubbishy words probably, and then trying to sing them to a tune. Although sometimes it came from listening to a song on the radio and thinking, oh, and I'd try and write some words that fitted the same meter
Mm-hmm.
as the song, and then write a different tune, but keep the same meter because the meter worked.
Yes.
So that's how I used to write it. But now that we're working digitally more, I probably, if I sit down on my own to write something, I probably start off just as you said, jamming with the with my phone, because one of the things about our record label is that a lot of the stuff is produced on my phone. Nothing else. No keyboard either. I'll just use the keyboard on the screen on the phone. And I've maintained doing that. And that goes back to kind of like it's a deliberate thing because I've got all the software to do whatever.
Yes.
But I quite like this idea of being limited by things. So when I'm writing in particular, it's quite good to be limited by some kind of rule. And then within those rules, you can start to extemporize as opposed to improvise, I suppose. I don't know what the difference in the words is in a way, but I always use that word, to extemporize or improvise within a kind of structure and then move out from that structure. So I'm kind of led by a process in my writing, in my art, in my music called link and shift. Link and shift. So linking to one idea and shifting away from it at the same time. And within one piece, we find that as well. So a link and a shift, a link and a shift. And eventually something just comes together. But it's not the only way to write. So it's good when you're writing with different people. I like to adapt to their style as well. There's not one right way of doing anything, is there? And we need to just move out of our comfort zone a little bit. So, for instance, writing with you, or sometimes I'm writing from a position where you've come up with a riff or even almost a fully blown piece of music almost, and you'll have sent it over to me, and then you just said, "Oh, do what you want with that. Have a listen to that," which again is that same idea in a sense. You're inviting me to link to it and shift from it.
What is something you learned about yourself during the process of becoming who you are as an artist?
I've learned quite a lot of things, but there are probably a couple of things that strike me that I've learned about myself as opposed to about the process of being an artist. And the first thing that I didn't come to it at first. When we first start working, I think, as an artist, when we're writing and when you're a lead singer or something like that, it's often very much about yourself.
Yes.
And what I've learned over the years is that I enjoy working and I work better in collaboration with other people. In general, I can work on my own, but I enjoy working with other people. And I think that it brings out the best in me if I'm working with someone else. And hopefully it brings out something in them as well. I can't speak for other people that I work with, but that working together, that sharing of ideas, having someone that you learn to trust as you work with them, and they're not frightened to say, "Oh, how about trying that?" And then opening yourself up to trying it. Because I do know that when I first started doing these things, I knew that I was always right. And now I realize I'm generally not right. But together we might make a nice cardigan.
Coming up next is Nymphs and Shepherds by Little Onion, featuring Rosemary June Conneally.
Nymphs and shepherds, come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds, come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds, come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds, come away, come away.
With bad news, come and start in the woods and the plains. Green, green grass. with Mary.
Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away.
Come and stroll. Green grasses, green
In this grove, I spot a flip, 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 Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come
We
away.
talk about nymphs and shepherds. Come and stroll.
Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come away. Nymphs and shepherds come away, come
We
away.
talk about nymphs and shepherds.
Nymphs and shepherds.
Well, the reason I've chosen this song is because it's the voice of my mum, my dead mum. And I recorded that. You can hear on the track when her voice comes in, you can hear birds singing and things because she was very ill. She was dying. And occasionally I'd managed to get her and walk her out round the back of her house into the local park. And we'd go for a little walk, her holding onto my arm. She was frail. And she'd tell me stories about when she was a little girl. And when she was a little girl, she was from a very poor family. She lived in a council house in Sheffield, and that's public housing for people that are not from the UK.
Yes.
And she was in what they called the mass school choirs. So they would go around the schools and they would get a few kids from each school and they bring them all together at Sheffield City Hall, and they would do a performance, and all the parents would go, and the great and the good would go as well to see them in this fantastic place where I saw some of my first gigs at the City Hall as well. So she was taken and she was introduced to the music of, who wrote Nymphs and Shepherds? Handel? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, Nymphs and Shepherds is a classical piece for a choral piece. And she was telling me she remembered singing it on the City Hall. Now, this was a woman that was in her 80s, late 80s, mid 80s, remembering back to when she was 6 or 7, and the tune and the song and that act of singing together with all the other little girls and boys, Nymphs and Shepherds, had stayed with her. So as we walked around the park, I said, "Oh, well, sing it for me, Mum." And I recorded her on my phone as we walked around the park. And that's what we get that keeps coming in, the refrain, her singing Nymphs and shepherds, come away, come away. So I then turned it into some kind of like dub kind of mix because dub music is one of my favorite forms of music and it just seemed to work. So I couldn't really not have it as one of the tracks that I played because I put it on and she's in the room with me again. Actually, no, we're walking around the park again together. And yeah, that's that track. Nymphs and shepherds, come away.
That's beautiful. I have some questions for you that are less deep. These are a little more just personal.
Okay.
What are your top 4 albums? And I know that's hard, but you can only pick 4. Just, the rest, you can never listen to them again. You can only have these 4.
Well, it would change from hour to hour, the answer that I gave you.
Yes,
But
yes,
at this moment in time,
yes.
I've got 4 albums. So I have For Your Pleasure, which was the second Roxy Music album,
Okay.
still before they'd become really, really big. And when I first heard Roxy Music play, it was a revelation to me again, in that we got synthesizers being used, electronics being used in a very different way to I'd ever heard them before. And that was Brian Eno, because Eno was in Roxy Music. And Brian Ferry had this very distinctive voice as well. And it was that perfect cross between progressive rock, trash pop music, pop art, glam, and almost everything in between, jazz, improvisation going on as well. And that album, just I can put it on and listen to it end to end every day of the week. I suppose I could. I have it on in the car sometimes, and I just love it. Tracks like "The Strand" or "In Every Dream Home, a Heartache." They're just fantastic songs. So that's one of them. The second one I've chosen is a very different album to that one. And I first heard it in 1976, and that's when I bought it in 1976. Although I think a lot of it had been recorded in 73, 74, and produced by the Velvet Underground, by John Cale from the Velvet Underground. And the album's called The Modern Lovers by the Modern Lovers, which is Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. And this again is an album that stays with me. I can listen to it end to end. So there was one hit from the record, which was Roadrunner, but it's the other tracks that I really like Hospital or Astral Plane and all these things. I just carry them with me. So that was another one. And it's kind of like a proto-punk song that comes from Velvet Underground and takes us into punk rock without being punk rock. And then my third one is Songs for Swinging Lovers by Frank Sinatra. Okay, so this album was one that I grew up with my mum and dad. So it reminds me of my mum and dad. But it's more than that. Sonically, it marked a point in recording history. And the points that it marked, there were changes in production techniques. And it was the first album where they'd mic'd close. So the big swing singers used to stand away from the microphone slightly. And that was Frank Sinatra's style as well. So by this time, he'd been going through a bit of a low patch. And they put him with Nelson Riddle. And I think it was on Capitol. And they put him in the studio and they mic'd him up really close. And his albums up until this point had become very introspective. But this was truly a swing album. And also it told us, it had a theme throughout. So it's one of the first albums to actually have, it was themed together. It was thought out as an album. And this close mic'd voice just gave a different timbre to things. And I think it influenced the way that music's recorded right the way up till now. You know, that sound you get when you're really close to the mic. It's almost like someone's whispering in your ear or kissing you in your ear. I don't know, but depends why you're listening and where you're listening and who you're listening with, I suppose. But yeah, songs for swinging lovers. And then my last one that I've chosen is again an album that is themed. It flows through from beginning to end. It's 38 minutes long, I think, maybe, both sides of the album together. And it's What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. And this marked a change in the way that Marvin Gaye, who was on Motown, moved the record label forward and moved the recording of soul music forward, in that Motown was seen as kind of a pop, a black pop label. And yet here was a man singing about war and peace and love and God. I'm not really into the God much, but it works. And so this is another one that kind of is a marker in the way that things were recorded and written, I think. So they're my 4 albums.
Coming up next, we have Dum 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 by Dum Dum Dum.
That's the first release I ever brought out on 7-inch vinyl, pressed independently by ourselves. But it has the distinction of being, if you're into vinyl, one of the most famous cutting engineers was a guy who always signed it Porky, but he'd only sign in the in-run to the label. He would sign if he thought it was a prime cut, so he would call it a Porky prime cut. And there are people that just collect Porky prime cuts. And Dum 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 that EP, there are 3 songs on it, but that's the eponymous track, Dum 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 by Dum Dum Dum, was a Porcupine cut. We only pressed up 1,000, and we hand packaged them and hand stamped them. And we didn't sell them all. We found it really difficult to sell any of them. And now what is really weird is that record goes for kind of between $50 and $100 on Discogs and things. And you're thinking, why? Why is it? And then you get people like Henry Rollins plays it on his radio station, on his radio program quite often, and says, oh, this has influenced me. I don't believe it, you see. I don't believe them. When they say this has influenced them, I don't believe it, because I don't think they would have heard it. But they're playing it now. And Andrew Weatherall, who was a big DJ and mixer, famous DJ and mixer, he did the Primal Scream stuff. Just what is it that makes your kids of today, whatever it is, the one I mean. And that's the Andy Weatherall stuff. He cites it as one of his influences. So I have to play it. It's my own record, and that's me when I was 18, I think 19, singing it. And yeah, Dum 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 by Dum Dum Dum. It's basically saying, it's an attitude. Dum Dum Dum. We all need fun. Let's have fun. Dum Dum Dum. And yeah.
So, do you have any advice for artists out there trying to, or still in the process of discovering themselves, and becoming an artist, and experiencing success, and whatever that may mean?
Well, I'm glad you said whatever that might mean, because it's how we define success, isn't it? I've never been commercially successful. And if one of the artists on the label is commercially successful at some point, that would be fantastic. I always think people might want to listen to what we make, but it's getting them to hear it in the first place. So difficult these days to get people to hear your music. It's never been easier to make music and put it out, and it's never been harder to get heard, because there's so much music out there, and so you're just a tiny little thing within the big system. So I'd say to people, only make music, only make art, only make poetry, only dance, only paint a picture if you really have to. If you know you've got to make this piece of music, despite what everybody else is saying to you about, oh, you don't have a long intro, it's got to be 2 minutes long now in order to get here, you've got to have it so many luffs, you've got to do this, that, and the other. I'd say, yeah, I understand where that's coming from, and I find myself listening to those things as well. But in the end, do what feels right for you. And if people like it and they feel what you're feeling, then you will have, if you like it when you've made it, then that's success. That's one success. Because often we make things and they're not that success. So my advice is, if you don't have to make art, then don't. Go make or do what you really want to. So if you don't have to make the music, don't make it. But if you have to, make what feels right for you and just go with it.
If you have a message for the world, what is it?
I don't know why anybody would want my message for the world, but my message for the world would be, if you can, if you can, try and live your life full of love. Try and love life, love people around you. It's difficult. Circumstances are so hard for people to say love life and your life's awful. It's terrible. But if you can keep a glimmer of love in your heart and love for other people, even when some of the people around you are not always that nice to you, um, try and keep some of that love there within you, burning within you, because it affects other people around you. I know there are times in my life when I've not projected that, and I think we all go through those periods where we, even on a day-to-day basis, we don't. But if we can do that, it's much better to love than hate. So stop fighting, except fight for justice and equality for everybody else, probably. And because if it's for everybody else, it's for you as well. That's it, really.
Okay, we're coming up on our final song. This is Splinters by Little Onion and Rat.
Shoulders still holding my weight. A ladder of old songs, giants packing lunches, greaseproof paper, mortar mixed with coal dust, cut knuckles, splinters in the banister, a creak in the attic, splinters,
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so Splinters
Yes.
by you and I, and then that became the title of the album as well. And again, this is one of those times when it comes out of going to visit a place and trying to get behind the person that people venerate for probably the wrong reasons, and that was Isaac Newton. So although it's a song ostensibly about, lyrically, it's about my family and people's families, that all the people that were there to make us what we are now are still with us, like splinters in the banister when you walk down the stairs and you run your hand down the banister. And yeah, splinter is your mum or whatever. And it's a good splinter. And then the music that you made for it just works so beautifully well. And it's kind of it kind of bookends the album, because we start with Afterglow, which has a slightly different feel, but it has a similar feel to it, that it doesn't feel like a pop song, but it is. You know, they both are. They're a bit short for a pop song in a sense. People have said to me, which again is good for us, really, you know, Rath, because people say, "Oh, I wanted it to go longer."
Yeah,
And
that's
both
good.
of those songs, they wanted to go longer, but you know, it's just about right. Bookends.
What are your thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, not artist interview, not the show, but actually artificial intelligence?
AI in art doesn't frighten me as much as AI in war.
Ooh. Well, thank you for being part of Artist Interview. It was great speaking with you. And on behalf of all the people whose lives you've changed by being yourself and through New Reality Records and making your art, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time. Have a great life, everyone who's listening. Bye.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.